Excited to be here. Hello, what a beautiful room.
I feel like we're so far away.
Do you want to sit over here?
No, that's okay.
I'll sit on your lap.
Oh, gosh. I don't want to get in trouble with Sophia or you with Margot. So, yeah. So let's just, break it in, get to know you a little bit better. I gave a few things about your bio, like who you are, but add to that. Give us a couple of words about like your vibe and how you think about where you are right now.
Totally. I'm a very energetic person, like high energy situations, like a dance floor or an exercise class, is really where I feel safest and have like a lot of love for the experience and myself in those moments. I would say that I'm a creative at heart. If you ask me which side of the brain, it's the one that likes to feel and emote and create art from it. I'm not good at Excel spreadsheets or checking emails, not that side of the brain. And I would say that I'm incredibly loyal. I'm loyal to my friends, my family, my career, my job, and mostly myself.
Oh, that hit. I felt that. We were just talking about identity, and I often describe myself and identify quite openly as a transgender man of lesbian experience, which I'm very important to add for me, and identify as queer, and that's kind of how I do it. You've talked about identity in different ways, so tell me about that. What does that question do for you? How do you respond to? How do you identify?
I would think if I had to bottom line that question, I would identify as queer. You could also say that I'm gay or I'm a lesbian or bisexual. Honestly, I think about that label so little. But if someone needs that to understand who I am, call me whatever. Call me lesbian. I mean, I'm in a same sex marriage, a wife, two beautiful children. So, by definition, I would be that. However, I think what makes me queer is my mindset. I give myself a lot of permission to be and exist in the ways that feel authentic to me. I really challenge systems and norms, things that have been passed down to us from generations, that this is just the way that it is. I've always been very rebellious in that and very challenging to that. But I think my mindset is super queer because I am so free spirited that I didn't decide to fall in love with a woman. I don't think love discriminates. I happened to fall in love with a woman and then I decided and chose to create a life with her. But it is that mindset, that permission that allowed me to be free to openly just say yes to love. I think that's queer nowadays. I think it's radical.
Amazing. Yeah. We can clap and snap for that. That makes me think about, it's Pride Night, right? It's Warriors Pride Night. So what does pride mean to you? Like, if queer is like the mindset, what is pride?
I've also been having this conversation with my wife recently about this word in particular. And I think what's more true for me about what it represents is gratitude. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude, that I have had such a pretty privileged and beautiful queer experience, that I've been accepted and received and given a platform to speak and represent. And I'm so grateful to that. And I'm also so grateful to those that have come before me who have fought for our equality, who have fought for me to be able to marry a woman and have a beautiful family. I'm grateful to that. I think pride is just about saying, we're here, we're queer, and we're not apologizing for that. And it's so much about self expression through not just our sexuality, but how we show up in the world, whether it's our clothes or the things that make us feel true to ourselves. And so pride for me is about gratitude and just expression, fullest expression without apology.
Wow. I love that. Sometimes I think, as someone who's been out for a while, won't say how long. Maybe I will. I've been out for 41 years.
Yes, clap for that, because that
And
takes courage.
and thank you.
Mhm.
And I think even for me, like acknowledging and knowing like our queer elders, like the people who've carried the torch and picked it up when it really wasn't at all safe to do so, and made space through their bodies and their blood. I think it's important to remember that, and I think it's particularly important in a moment like we're in today, where there's an assault on those rights that are so hard won. And even when we haven't completed the journey to all of our rights, we've got now, Florida, Texas, the things. So I really love that thinking about Pride as both a celebration and almost that gratitude, or a moment to remember our history and the weight of it. Um, So we were just, talking about hard-won rights, and I'm gonna veer into something we also talked about just a minute ago, which is, prior to working at Accenture, I worked at the Human Rights Campaign, and what I did there was work with companies, including Peloton, on how to be more inclusive employers and the kind of policies and benefits and things that are needed to be equitable. Um, you experienced some of that. And it was a really touching moment for me actually here. But tell us about your experience at Peloton and forming your family.
So I fell in love with Sophia right when I started working at Peloton. Like the two things happened to me at the same time. And I was kind of worried about it. Those first few moments holding a woman's hand in public or kissing in public, showing affection, like being out in the world, how that would impact my career. I had just started at this company. The company had just started. And I remember going to work one day and I said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And my boss said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm dating a woman. Um, is that a problem?" And she said, "Is it a problem for you?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Yeah, no, us either. No, we're good. Go on, teach your class." I'm like, "Okay." And it was like that simple. And I remember when I started, over and over, you hear, "We want to make Peloton the greatest place to work. We want to make this place the greatest, everybody that we would want to be here." And I have seen how they have championed, supported, and done so much for all of our marginalized communities, but specifically the LGBTQ plus community. And some of the policies that you worked on and the things that you did have had a tremendous impact on me. There is this one company called Carrot, which it helps with all things fertility and babies. And we had that benefit. And my fertility journey, and Sophie, she had a much easier one, lucky. Mine took a year of trying like 5 different attempts, lots of different ways. And this benefit was tremendous in that. So thank you so much for that, because it deeply impacted me directly and my family.
Well, thank you, and support your LGBTQ advocacy organizations, because they're the ones doing this work and influencing the laws and policies that we have. Thinking about Peloton, right? I'm a rider. Yay. The Jess King experience is like a high octane event. I sometimes you wear me out a little, in a good way. It's a big stage to be a Peloton instructor, and you've got such a brand, right? Each of you do, but you have your own unique brand, and as a woman, as Latina, as LGBTQ, all those things. It's a big stage. How do you deal with that pressure? How do you think about being all of those things in your work and representing that, while, I don't know, writing and coaching and
Yeah.
you know encouraging us all to be our best on that?
Sure. very loaded question, but I think I
Yeah.
have the answer to
Okay.
that. A few things to know about me. One is I love the spotlight. Love it. Ever since I was little, get me on a stage, put me in the front, I'll take it from there. So my performance pedigree was the bar was set pretty high. My first real thing was being on So You Think You Can Dance, season 4. And then 14 years later,
Yes.
we're still here. Thank you. I meet people like, I voted for you. I'm like, oh my God. And then from there, I went to become the lead in the Cirque du Soleil show in Las Vegas. And so, my level of production and pressure. I mean, in Cirque, there was like, if you mess up, you will die. It was like that, right? So I'm used to that pressure. I thrive in that type of environment. I was telling you, I'm like kind of nervous just about being here. And I translate that as like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm on my path. This feeling, this vibration is telling me that I'm in it. So go for it. I live for that thrill. Another thing you should know about me is I'm incredibly ADHD. So this concept of being on the bike and right over here, yes, is being on the bike and thinking about, okay, who's on the other side of that screen? What am I doing? What's happening in the music? What are the thoughts? What am I feeling? Who needs a milestone shout out? What's going on in the room? What's happening with the cameras, with the lighting? This is heaven for my brain. I'm just like, So I think that my role at Peloton has a lot to do with my destiny, a lot to do with finding a career that is in alignment with my truth, my passion, my gifts. Um, and I recently went to an event with Billie Jean King, another trailblazer, another pioneer for the LGBTQ in athletics and tennis. And she said, pressure is a privilege and athletes adjust. And that resonated so deep within my bones because I do feel the responsibility of having a platform, having influence, being able to speak to someone's heart, to hold them in a challenging time in their lives. This unique gift and desire I have to do that in the world is a ton of pressure, but what a privilege to be able to have that influence when times are dark, when times are heavy, during the pandemic, even now what we're facing. I understand that whoever is on the other side of that leaderboard is charged. And I have an opportunity to shift that vibration from something that is in fear, in panic, anxiety, stress, sadness, and move with them to shift that to something that is loving, a vibration that is maybe for the moment peaceful and ultimately healing. So I deeply just, again, feel a tremendous amount of gratitude. And I love the pressure because without it, I wouldn't perform.
Amazing. Now, is it true that you hadn't been on like a spin bike when you were? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you just like go fearlessly into the new there? What happened there?
I have this extreme confidence. I have, yeah. So basically, I was at a rock bottom in my life, in a very abusive, toxic relationship, moved to New York, wasn't working out, wasn't dancing. I opened a bar. What? And was working at this nightclub that has like a cabaret style show in it in New York. And it was a rainy night. Long story short, I gave a ride to somebody. I still had a car in New York. I gave a ride to somebody who was like, hey, there's this thing called Pedalton, and I think you'd be great at it. It's a spin bike. And I was like, oh, I've never even done that before. My mom is in fitness. And I was like, I'm not my mom. I'm an artist. I don't want to ride a bike. But I was also like, in back of my head, I'm like, you're so poor. You have no money. You have no life's purpose right now. And I promised myself a year of yes. So I said yes to the opportunity. I started showing up. This was before we had a studio, and it was just this little black curtain with a bike. We were beta testing the technology, the software, and I started taking classes and they're like, hey, we'd like you to audition to be an instructor. And I'm like, I'm not auditioning for you. I can fake it for 5 minutes and do the audition, but just hire me. I have everything that you need. I understand production. I have the things to say to the people, musicality, movement, body awareness. I can learn how to ride a bike that doesn't move. Trust me, I'll be fine. And so they did. They're like, okay, we're just gonna hire this chick, and it's been 10 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And
The only instructor who never auditioned. Thank you so much.
Well, I think the takeaway there is the year of yes.
Oh yeah, major. Because like I said, simultaneously, Sophia showed up, and we were totally sidetracking, but I think this is interesting, right? So I was working in this nightclub or whatever, and going through this breakup, and then she walked in, and I had never been with a woman before, and I saw her, and there was this like this. She used to call me crazy eyes because I would sit on the other side of the theater and just be like, just staring. I'm like, I don't know what you mean, but I need to be around you, you know? So I again, this crazy confidence. I went up to her and said something so ignorant. I was like, do you want to hook up? Something. And she's like, I'm not your experiment, straight girl. Get out of here. And I was like, oh, okay, that was rude. I'm so sorry. So then I just spent a year trying to learn who she was, observe her, I guess, become her friend. But there was always so much tension. And then after a year, we started, like, we went on a date. And yeah, so at the same time, I had given myself permission and said yes. I didn't really know I would fall in love with her. But then when it showed up, I was like, whoa, I'm in love with this person. What am I going to say no to love? I've been trying to manifest this and call love in for so long. I had made this list of all the things that I didn't want and all the things that I wanted and how I wanted to feel at night and how all these things. And I had never specified gender in that list. And then she showed up and I was like, well, I'm not going to say no. So here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. I think you referenced it a little when you're talking about the bike and what you're giving into as a coach. I also say drill sergeant sometimes. I think Peloton, it is an experience, right? It's not just the bike. You could just go ride the bike in the gym, right? It is something more than that. But what I want to get at is underneath that, the healing. Or the energizing, or the turning a mood from, down to up, whatever it is. And so I'm thinking, I guess I'm kind of connecting dots around mental health, wellness. You've talked about movement as healing. Let's talk a little bit about that. I think, the world is hard. And it feels especially hard right now. It's very hard for lots of reasons. But I think for queer folks in particular, there's been some really challenging legislation, violence, hate. Let's talk about how you find like your resilience and mental health, your relationship to therapy, which you've talked about a little bit. Let's get into that a little bit, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. I think my wife would say that when I'm coaching, I might as well be reading a page out of my diary. And a lot of that is true. I do journal a lot, and there are days when I don't feel peppy. I think most days I don't. And I think about not trying to show up any differently, but instead just keeping it real, because that's relatable. And I think it's important to authentically honor myself and also my audience in that way. That most of the time people don't want to show up to work out, and most of the time they're very stressed out, and most of the time there's shit going on in the world and in their families, and they're not coming to the bike like rainbows and butterflies. That's really not what it's about. So And it isn't for me either. I just sat in traffic for 2 hours to get to the studio. I have baby vomit on me. I have bills to pay. And, I'm also a person too. So showing up in that authenticity and just saying, hey, it's been a shit day. Let's do something about it. Let's move. When I started at Peloton, I also think it's important to note that I knew that I was going to be speaking to larger audiences. And intuitively, I get it. When I see someone feeling trauma or feeling sad or in a vibration of stress, pain, intuitively, I would know how to name it and what I thought where they should end up, but I didn't have the skill set to do that with impact. So I went to become certified to be a life coach. And that was a 2-year program for me. It wasn't just like a weekend seminar. I'm like, no, I really, really want to get it. I want to understand human psychology and how to reframe, how to find new perspectives, how to shift stuck energy and patterns and do it in a way that can create a safe container for people to navigate that and have impact that is not just telling people what I think they should do, but offering them the chance to get there themselves. So there is a strategic, at this point, it's like reflex for me to acknowledge what's showing up in the container as individuals and the collective, and for myself personally, name it, and then find a way to shift that perspective, to reframe it, to be with it long enough so that it shifts. The beautiful thing about music and movement, especially with movement, is that it's scientifically proven to shift the energy in your body, right? You're getting the chemicals that you need to feel better. You're releasing unstuck energy in your body. And at the same time, you're inviting strength and power in. And that for me does wonders for my mental health. Not just because I'm like, oh, I worked out today. I don't have to hear that noise in my head, but I'm also benefiting chemically, physically from the effect of taking my stuck, shitty, stank energy, shaking it up and feeling different about it. I don't make any big decisions until I've worked out. And honestly, I'm not fit for human consumption until I have. So I deeply believe in the power of physical movement and the medicine of it. And music, it's undeniable. Music will shift your energy, will meet you where you are, will offer a soundtrack to the way you're feeling, or lyrics or words to thoughts that in your head you didn't have, and just offer a gateway and an opportunity to feel differently after hearing a song or a set. So when you combine music and movement together, I think it is a surefire way to really change your life, change your day, change your mood, change your chemistry. And I do it strategically so that I'm acknowledging your psyche as well, and having that impact of empowering you to believe in yourself, to feel that you are not alone, that you do have a community of people around you, and encourage you to go out there and do something with that light.
Wow. Yeah, bring it. So is DJ a new thing for you?
I
So
love it.
Yeah, talk about that.
I love it. The second someone tries to put me in a box, I'm like, ha, new box. I love music. I love DJs. I love dance floors. And I also love parties, but I get very socially awkward. And I'm just to the point now where I'm like, how old am I? 30? I'm 38. Don't talk to me when I'm on the dance floor. Like, that's where I am. Like, mama's tired. She made it out. Leave me alone. I'm doing my thing. So, I really thought, like, what's the next step for me? What is the next version of me? I'm like, I'm going to learn how to DJ. And while I was on mat leave with my son, I learned how to DJ. And then I came out of mat leave and I was like, I'm a DJ. And honestly, the world's like, cool, let's go. I'm like, okay, it's a thing now. I should probably really learn how to do it. No, I get it. I've been making playlists for 10 years now, and I know it's not the same thing, but in a way it is. I really love to I love control. Who doesn't? And I really love to control the vibes, the energy, the atmosphere, the arc of any sort of experience. And so music is such a beautiful way to tell that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So before we open it up for audience questions, so I'm giving you a little warning that we're going to get questions from you all as well, so you can think of a few for Jess. New parent, right? Talk about that. You've got a beautiful family. What's happening there? How are you feeling?
Yeah, so I had a baby almost a year ago, and my wife had a baby about 3.5 months ago. So we have two. Look at her face. That is right. That is exactly right. She went, and people were like, "Oh, you guys are crazy." I'm like, "Yeah, ha ha." And now I'm like, "Oh my god, they were so right. This is totally batshit." Um, so so there's that element of all of a sudden being responsible for two creatures, right? Every little thing about them, and it's been the most selfless act of just giving energy, time, resources that used to be for myself or my, Sophia, like, where do you want to go? Vacation, this is whatever. And now it's like, what are we doing about daycare? And shifting. It's just been beautiful to learn how to be parents, to meet this natural urge and desire we had to be mothers and come face to face with the reality of what that means. She and I have really blossomed into such a beautiful team, a beautiful dynamic. No shade to the men, but there is something to be said about having two moms. It's really incredible, and it's really beautiful how dedicated and committed we both are to our children and to one another, trying not to get lost in that. I think there has been to speak to the queer experience of it, there has been an education that's had to come, an education for my audience that's had to come from this, about what is appropriate, what is not appropriate to ask. Like the question of, well, who's the father? That's been a fun one to mitigate. Just, I would say, like, being a father is a title that you earn. We have a donor, very different. Who's the mom? Who's the real mom? Well, we both are. We're both really moms. So that was an interesting thing. And then there's this like mission from a lot of my audience to figure out, well, who the donor is. I think, like, when I meet a baby on the street with their mom, I'm not like, who's your dad? Like, what an odd thing to ask. So there is this evolution, this education that has to come with it. And I am really proud and honored to represent in that category, to be same-sex marriage, to be two queer moms and raising two beautiful children.
Yeah, amazing. All right, we're gonna open it up for the audience, if that's okay. Jess, are you ready for the audience? And do we have a mic for the audience? Yes, thank you. Anybody have a question for us? Oh, come on now. There we go, right up front.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
So you were talking about how you were since you were young. Were you always this confident, or is this kind of unapologetic, authentic confidence a muscle that you had to exercise, or are you born with it?
Great question. I think it's twofold. I was born to an immigrant mother. My mom is from Santiago, Chile, and she was the first of her family to come to the States. She was a golfer, and for some reason, she ended up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I love that somebody laughed. Yeah, it's that. I would say, why are we here? I don't understand. But she was bullied by our community a lot, just for being a single mom, for being a little Latina, and she was hot. So she didn't give a fuck about all of these like Southern cultures or traditions or doing it this way. And she just did not care. And she really went after her dreams. She was a bodybuilder. She won the state when she was like 50 years old. I remember I was in the audience like, go mom. People were like, that's your mom. I'm like, crazy. So she was just such an incredible example of like, don't worry about what people think of you. You have a powerful gift inside of you. Go get them. Go get them. It was this mentality of like focus, discipline, train, have integrity in your word and in your actions. Fuck the rest. And so that really gave me the confidence to drive in my career. But with that, and being the product of a divorced family, there was a lot of traumas and there was a lot of insecurities that came from a sense of abandonment, of going back and forth between families, and am I lovable? Am I good enough? Yes, she passed on a lot of discipline, but she also passed on being a perfectionist. So I've had to really unpack that. I have had to really, I call myself a recovering perfectionist because it comes with it a really dark side. So that's where the therapy came in. 10 years of just trying to understand who I was as a child, celebrate the parts of it that were so beautiful, learn to love the parts of it that I had shame around or trauma around, and really invite both sides of me, the confident side of me, the side of me that felt hurt, broken, or not good enough, and say, no, all of you is my wholeness. All of you is coming to the table. All of you is invited to the party. I'm not sitting up here right now just in the parts of me that we're talking about, that we're celebrating. There's also all of the other side that is my shadow as well, that is still present, that is still here. So that was a journey. So it's twofold. It's a lot of just how I was born, how I was raised, and then what I decided to do as I got older with all that I was given. Thank you for asking that.
Anybody else? Yeah, right up front.
You're really close for everyone else.
She's been waiting.
I think you sort of spoke to it a moment ago. This constant obsession for growth and continuing. You're like, oh, maybe I'll be a DJ. How do you find a sense of being just happy with where you're at?
It's also great. You guys, I feel like I'm in a therapy session right now. It's a lot of what I work on. It took me a long time to value stillness, to value recovery, to value being bored. So I think it's twofold. I think it's a divine dissatisfaction. Martha Graham says that. A blessed unrest that keeps me going, that keeps me marching, but at the same time learning that I was born enough, good enough, whole enough, that I'm creative and resourceful when I was born. So the two things go hand in hand. It's like, yes, there is this drumbeat inside of me that's saying, drive, that's saying, learn more, heal more, give more, have a bigger impact. Let's face it, make more money, whatever it is, the things that are driving you. But at the same time, breathe. Look around. I'm not doing it because I don't think I'm good enough or I don't have enough. I'm doing it because I know I am enough, and the world needs that light. The world needs that wholeness to say, it's not just me. I'm not special. I wasn't the only one born whole. All of you were too. Creative, resourceful, and whole. So it's both things. It's the both and. Honoring the blessed unrest and the energy and that I just am, and at the same time being consciously aware to take a deep breath and look around and say, no, I am enough. I am good enough. This is good enough.
Thank you. I still have the mic.
There's a couple here.
I saw your hand up. Okay, both of you. I just want to say thank you for coming out here and sharing your story. It's a beautiful story. Thank you for being real and authentic. We feel it in our hearts. But the question that I want to ask you is, what advice do you have for young people that are just now getting out in the world and just now like creating a career for themselves and just now trying to figure things out? Like, what advice do you have for folks trying to actually go into doing the things that make them happy and make them feel alive?
I would say this to young people. I'd also say this to young queer people as well. Find your people, find your community. I do think the path of a pioneer is a lonely path. It's not one that gets a lot of praise. There's a lot of adversity you have to overcome. There's a lot of challenges to innovating and shaking shit up. And it can be very lonely. It can be very scary. But having a community, having a group of people that love you, that see you, that can anchor you, is everything. So the advice I would have is invest in your chosen family and in the friendships that truly see you and love you for who you are, and be fearless. Be fearless, knowing that you can always come home to love. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Amazing.
Hi. So two-part question. I wanted to first ask you your sign. I'm very
My
interested.
sign.
Yeah.
How did I know this was going to come up today? I'm a
'cause me-
Gemini.
Oh my God. I'm totally out of the water. I thought
I
you were
live
Aries.
with Scorpios, all Scorpios.
I thought you were Aries. But yeah.
That's me. I'm the Aries.
And the other part to my question is like having your brand, being a new parent, a career, and also having a wife. Like, how do you find time for yourself and also find time for your partner? Like, how do you balance all of those different titles?
I don't. Balance is a joke. Because if you think about it, if I'm balancing, do you see how much movement is happening underneath of me to support this one thing? So balance is not stillness. I imagine one of those paper plates on a stick, and you're just kind of like trying to like run around. That's what my life feels like. I think we are strategic to say, hey, look, by February, we're going to be really burnt out. Should we like plan something so we know we're taking time off to do that? She's really good about saying Friday, date night, no exceptions. But the real truth is, it's very seasonal. So right now, I just came out of mat leave times 2. So 4 months with my son. I only took 2 months with our daughter. And so I'm just kind of coming out of that. And my season right now is work. I am working, I am driving, I want to push really hard. So I told her that. I'm like, are you on board? Like the next 3 or 4 months, I'm gonna be traveling, working, doing the things. Like, do you have my back? She's like, I got your back. And then I'm like, okay, what do you need? She's like, I need to go head to the bathhouse with you for one night. We just need to have a chill. I'm like, I can handle that. So it's just really, really about communication and authentically communicating what my needs are, hearing what her needs are, and then strategically collaborating on how we can both feel seen, feel heard. But I think letting go of the illusion that there's going to be balance in a day or in a week, that's not true. It's very seasonal, and just honoring the season.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Beck, great questions. Thanks for curating such a great space. Hi, Jess. I'm Imani. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I wanted to ask, I really appreciated how you talked about how important being creative was in your life. And I was wondering if you could talk about what that gives you to be creative in your life, what saying yes to that, how that helps you be full in other ways that maybe folks wouldn't consider as creative.
It's everything for me. Creativity, especially collaboration. I care so little about the end result or the final show or the presentation of it. I'm so deeply invested in the creative process because you just never know what you're going to get. You never know what's going to happen. I love that. What I dislike is the same shit over and over again. Predictability. I feel uncomfortable in that comfort, if you will. So it's just a natural impulse and reflex to think, well, how can I strategically be creative? What is a problem we're trying to solve? What is the impact we want to have? How many people how many diverse individuals can we get in the room to offer and shed their perspective on this one thing, and then let's go for it. Let's create, because I think art, whether it's a ride that I'm doing, a conversation that I'm having, it brings people together. It offers an opportunity to heal. And I think it is so, so, so important when a lot of us can be deduced to a statistic on a spreadsheet, that we remember our human qualities and our human essence, which is to feel, to experience, to connect. And so and I've always found myself in corporate environments, which is super weird and crazy, because I'm like, hey, and they're like, you don't look like you play by the rules. I'm like, what rules? Let's go. So there is an element of having to mature and understand the politics of it all to get so that I am heard. But I don't know if I'm answering your question, but for me, I can't help it. It is how I show up in the world, as the offer and the value that I have on my team as well, to think about how we can push our company forward. At Peloton, I'm constantly thinking about how we can creatively create content for our members that is interesting, relevant, touching, important. And that's why I created a music festival at Peloton. You guys know that. We have a music festival. It's my baby.
Amazing. So how do you exercise that creativity, even just thinking about the role of the instructor on the bike? Like, do you ever get stuck?
Did you see my Halloween ride? I was an alien.
Oh my gosh, and the ludicrous ride.
Oh, ludicrous. I don't remember that ride. I'm not responsible for anything that happened during that ride. Somebody left pregnant. I don't know.
Mixing it up.
So your question is, how do I
just, I mean, I think a lot of us do jobs where we do repetitive versions of things on a theme, right? And I think it's probably a universal experience to think about, how do you keep that fresh, right? So you come into the studio, and on a surface level, you run a Peloton class. It's the same thing. But how do you work through keeping it fresh and creative?
Well, I've never done the same playlist or taught the same class twice.
Right.
Ever.
So it's all new.
It's every time it's new, it's fresh. I can give you just a little bit of insight into what goes into, like, let's say, the Jess King experience. Okay. So the many different points of entry in terms of creativity and how we partner with many teams. Production team who works with the control room team, who works with social, who works with marketing. You get it. But for me, I come in and I say, okay, this season of Jess King experience, I want to rave around the world. I want to go to Ibiza. I want to go to Paris. I want to go to London. I want to go to Brazil. I can't remember the other one I did. Doesn't matter. Berlin. Okay. And so let's take Berlin, for example. I've never been, but in my imagination, if I were to go rave in Berlin, I'd probably be gone for a few days. And I'm going to be lost on like a 7-floor party where each level is a different floor. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to come in and we're going to start at the top. We're going to take an elevator down to the bottom, and each song is going to take us to a different layer. And at the top, I want it to feel like this, right? So I would say, I want it to feel like the ceilings are tall and the air is crisp and cold. So the lighting would probably reflect something clean and white and fresh. And then as we go further down, the ceilings get lower, the temperature gets hotter, the vibes change and get a little thicker, darker, and seedier, if you will. And so working with the lighting team to create that lighting design. And then I go to my Brittany Allen, who is a designer, and I'm like, okay, I want graffiti, I want this, I want neon colors, and she'll create looks for me. Or like for Ibiza, I was like, I want to look like a sunset. So then a member took a photo of a sunset, and another member printed it on fabric, and then she made this whole. So there's so much thought and creativity. And then I work with DJ John Michael on, okay, the playlist, like, here's what we want to say, these are the artists we want to talk about. For Berlin, we got to do some techno. So we go there. And so it's just every part of it is a collaboration down to the moment we're on the bike, right? And I'm like, okay, camera here. I want camera 8 for this moment. Hit me there, hit me there. Not every instructor runs the show like that. But because I do have that experience, and remember, I love control, then we're hitting camera 4 when I say go. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
No, that's really cool. All right, I think we have time for one more question, and I see a hand right here. Oh, we've got one already.
Hi,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Maybe we'll work in a second.
Where are
one.
you?
Right here.
Oh, hi.
Hi,
Hi.
Aubrey here. Nice
Hi,
to
Aubrey.
meet you. Loved you on So You Think You Can Dance. Amazing.
That's crazy.
Yes. So my question, I don't know if it's two-part, but I'll just talk it through. So, congratulations on the children you had. My question is, how did you both know that it was time to have the children? I think, as being part of the LGBTQ, we are privileged to be able to choose when we get to have kids. So how did you know, especially, you love to do things and move around and everything. So how did you both know it was time to kind of kickstart that journey? And second question to that was it hard to get that journey started? Finding donors and everything, yeah.
Wild, bumpy landscape. That is for sure. I think age was a huge determining factor. We both, I think we were like 36, and we're like, we should have our fertility check just to see what's going on. Hers was like, you could have babies till you're 100, and mine was like, you should probably start yesterday. So we started the journey of finding a donor, and it was very odd to ask people, right? Like, hey, what do you think about that? And we asked one person, and it was super awkward and uncomfortable. So we kind of like, we're like, we're not really sure what we want to do. We would go to, a bank and do it. And then we had a friend offer. And that was really beautiful. And we were like, yes, let's do that. But then it sends you down when you do a direct to donor, then you have like psychological evaluations. They have to quarantine the sperm. Like there's just this whole journey of like what that looks like. And then for me, I started with, I'm just be super candid with all of you. I started with an egg retrieval that yielded nothing. No embryos. So we did it again. We got some mediocre embryos at best. So then I tried an IUI that didn't work. I tried another IUI that didn't work. And then they're like, let's scrape your uterus. I'm like, let's do it. So they did that. Then they tried to do the IVF, and then that didn't work. And I was like, I think I need a break. And I really shifted to say, what can I control here? Because this feels completely out of my control. I feel like I'm just like on an assembly line and nobody cares. And I had just become totally detached from what is the miracle of having a baby and the spiritual component of it. So I started doing sound healing, where each session was moving through a different chakra and essentially communing with my baby, writing letters to the baby, inviting the baby in, creating space in my home, acting as if they were there already. I started going to acupuncture. I read a book called The Egg Quality Diet and changed my diet completely to support my egg quality, and found a different doctor. That part. And that doctor ran some different tests that they used to do in the clinic all the time that were standard, but I guess they couldn't charge insurance companies enough money for it, so they stopped doing it. It revealed a couple of things that we were able to easily tweak. And after 3 months, I got pregnant with an IUI with no drugs whatsoever. So again, pretty miraculous, but it was a whole year, and the journey was very, very, very bumpy. And so then with Sophia, I was still pregnant. I go, you should try, because it took me a year. So like, how long it'll take you? And of course she got pregnant on the first one. And I was like, bitch, now we have 2 kids that are 8 months apart. Amazing, but wow.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
All right, everybody, we are at the end of our time. Can you join me, please, in thanking Jess for sharing with us and her candor and her authenticity? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me in this beautiful scenery in this beautiful room. I'm always so touched when people are curious about me, more than just like what you see when you see me, because I think I'm very misunderstood and I don't make great first impressions. So having the time to sit down and really open up and just connect with y'all is really lovely. So thank you for the opportunity and for having me.
Thank you. All right. And I think we're going to move into where